What if everything you were taught about the God of the Bible was built for one purpose only? To control you. What if the God of the Bible was never a voice from the sky, but a product of marble temples and royal propaganda? What if monotheism was never a revelation, but an imperial invention sold to the masses as truth? Today you will see how Zeus became YHWH, how Rome inherited the lie, and how the New Testament was crafted to sanctify power. This is not faith, this is empire. Welcome to a truth older than scripture and deeper than doctrine.
Welcome to Nazarene Truths. Be wise as a serpent.
Religion is never pure. It is a mirror of power. Every god in the ancient world was a political tool, shaped by the rulers who paid the priests and built the temples. The God of the Bible is no exception. The being later called YHWH did not descend from heaven. He rose from the marble floors of Hellenistic temples, wearing the borrowed language of empire. What we call monotheism began as a marketing campaign for legitimacy. When Antiochus IV Epiphanes rededicated the Jerusalem temple to Zeus Olympios in 167 BCE, he was not committing blasphemy in the way later theology pretends. He was practicing imperial religion. Greek kings ruled by divine equation. Each region's god was equated with the high god of Greece. To honor Zeus Olympios in Jerusalem was to proclaim that the Most High of the Jews was the same cosmic ruler, worshipped across the Mediterranean. The policy was meant to unify empire through theology. The Maccabees revolted, but their rebellion was not a crusade for spiritual purity. It was a nationalist seizure of the temple economy. Once they gained control, they did not abolish Greek ideas, they inherited them. Their coins were inscribed in Greek, displaying cornucopias and palm branches copied directly from Seleucid royal issues. The so-called defenders of monotheism minted images that celebrated Hellenistic prosperity and divine kingship. The new high priest Jonathan was a Greek client ruler in all but name. Scholars such as Martin Hengel in Judaism and Hellenism show that by the 2nd century BCE, every layer of Jewish thought had absorbed Greek philosophy. Even the term Theos Hypsistos, the Most High God, appeared on inscriptions throughout the Hellenistic world. The God of Israel had become one among many manifestations of Zeus. Israel Finkelstein and Neil Asher Silberman in The Bible Unearthed demonstrate that earlier Yahwism was regional and polytheistic. The fusion with Zeus did not corrupt a pristine faith. It created the illusion of a single god where none had existed before. By the time Rome arrived, the transformation was complete. The Hasmonean dynasty had already turned the Jerusalem cult into a hybrid system that could speak both Hebrew and Greek. Rome simply replaced one imperial vocabulary with another. Jupiter took the place of Zeus, and Latin terms replaced Greek ones, but the theological structure remained. A single universal Father ruled heaven and legitimized earthly authority. When the New Testament writers composed their Gospels in Greek, they were writing within that Roman order. Their Father in heaven was linguistically and philosophically identical to the Roman Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the greatest and best. The Johannine Logos was not a mystical innovation, but a Stoic rephrasing of the same cosmic reason that Roman philosophers used to describe divine order. Francesca Stavrakopoulou notes in God and Anatomy that the biblical God's body, emotions, and kingship language were modeled on the anthropomorphic gods of the wider Mediterranean. The writers of John's Gospel inherited that language and gave it a moral sheen suited to empire. Consider the tone of John's prologue. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is not a Hebrew poem, It is a Greek hymn to cosmic law. The Logos is reason, the governing intelligence that keeps the universe in harmony. To the Roman elite, this sounded familiar. It echoed their belief that the empire itself was the earthly expression of divine order. The Gospel of John reads like a philosophical proclamation that the divine Logos has taken flesh in a man loyal to that order. The temple scene in John, where Jesus drives out the merchants, is not an anarchic revolt. It is a theatrical purification, a moral display that ends with the promise to rebuild the temple in 3 days. For a Roman audience, this was satire and reassurance. It dramatized chaos and restored authority in a single act. Jesus cleanses, but does not overthrow. He destroys only to rebuild in symbolic form, the perfect gesture of a state religion that renews itself without rebellion. Even the crucifixion narrative reflects Roman ideology. Pilate appears as the voice of reason, declaring, "I find no fault in him." The prefect embodies the impartial magistrate, trapped between law and local fanaticism. The inscription on the cross in 3 languages, Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, announces Rome's universal jurisdiction. The empire is multilingual, multicultural, and divinely ordained. The death of the hero becomes the triumph of order. Early Christian thinkers sealed the merger. Justin Martyr equated the Logos of John with the Stoic Logos of reason. Clement of Alexandria declared Greek philosophy a gift from the same God who gave the law to Moses. By the time of Constantine, Jupiter had vanished in name only. The Father of Christ had absorbed his attributes. The thunderbolt became the cross, the imperial patronage of Jupiter. Capitolinus was transferred to the Christian basilica. The political theology of empire survived its own conversion. Erwin Goodenough's studies of Hellenistic Jewish art show that synagogue mosaics and catacomb paintings from this period freely used zodiac wheels, Helios chariots, and personified seasons. These were not pagan decorations. They were visual confessions that the God of the Jews and the God of the Romans were functionally identical. The heavens were ruled by one law, and the emperor ruled by its reflection on earth. In this light, the New Testament ceases to be a revelation from heaven. It becomes a continuation of Hellenistic propaganda, polished for Roman sensibilities. The miracles, parables, and moral discourses serve the same purpose as imperial edicts and public benefactions. They instruct the populace in obedience, charity, and civic harmony. The Gospels claim that the kingdom is not of this world, neutralizes political resistance, while promising metaphysical justice. It is theology engineered for social control. Once the Roman lens is applied, the evolution is clear. Zeus Olympios, YHWH Sabaoth, and the Christian Father are different masks on the same imperial face. Each generation renamed the god of authority to suit its regime. The temple that Antiochus rededicated to Zeus, the sanctuary that the Maccabees reclaimed, and the church that Constantine built were stages of one long political performance. Modern believers read the Bible as sacred history, but its authors wrote within the grammar of empire. The divine voice that speaks from its pages is not the sound of eternity. It is the echo of marble halls, the language of governors and philosophers who knew that faith is the most efficient form of rule. The Father in heaven is the emperor of the mind. Until we see that, we remain subjects of the same illusion. The world built religions out of marble and fear, but the real path of Jesus was never found in temples or thrones. It was found in the current that still moves beneath every living thing. The Nazarene way is older than Scripture and stronger than empire, because it does not demand belief, it demands awakening. It asks you to return to the water that remembers who you are. You are not owned by any book. You are not claimed by any nation. You belong to the river of the great life. Walk with courage, walk with clarity, and walk with the truth that Jesus carried long before Rome, long before creeds, long before the world forgot the sound of living water. To see what this means, check out this video I made. The river still flows, the great life still calls, and the awakening begins with you. Veritas Lux Mea. Rishama Raymond Taylor, keeper of the river and light.